Well, hello everybody. Welcome. It is a Flat Earth Nation, and don't ever let them tell you anything else. And I am super excited right now because I can finally verbalize uh, a complete theory instead of a theory on a topic or a subject. And it just came into place while I was working today. I was working on a sermon and a presentation for tonight, and I walking my dog. I had saw some rocks that looked interesting to me, and I wanted to, go back and check it out. In the back of my mind was going like, "You're just going back there to check them out because they're green." And I saw some flashes of green when I picked up that stone the other night that I said I was going to turn into art tonight. But I might skip that. It might be easy, but this is more important, a formulation of a complete theory. And how rare is it to find green, the rarest of colors in stone? And it was exciting for me because it just kept coming, and some of the pieces are big enough that still are I'll be able to prove that they were grown on this matrix, and that what they are calling a rock, or what they'll probably try to pass off as petrified wood, no way. Breakpoints. I got them there. I got them. I know this part too, and it's got green. It's got matrix. So even if they don't buy it, I've got emerald or beryl, as we'll go into later lessons. And that on the gemstones, the diamonds and beryls, and what a conundrum. You ever hear that one? Well, what is a conundrum? It's a gemstone that could be a sapphire, but if it's not the right color, depending on who you buy it from, could be red, could be green. It's a conundrum. It's white. It depends on who's selling it to you. Mhm. So I've got that going. We've got priceless art that I'm finding, that they call modern stonework, which this piece is an example of the woodland owl token that probably is 10 times better than the one in the Smithsonian. Uh, Google it if you want to. So I've got all that going. I can prove it that way. I can, I can go back and show you my art and tell you that you see the you see the bull because God put it there. That's why. Not because I know how to carve obsidian. That's ridiculous. So we got that. We got what I call skulls with, with holes that we're going to be examining in. I've got 4 or 5 specimens like this that will have the ear holes. I'll be able to get down to smaller ones. I have bought 2 endoscopes so that the bigger ones will just go right in them. And I'll be able to point out what I see on the inside, and I'll say, oh, when I get to that point in my forensicing the fossil skulls, we'll find that. And I will account for every little hole that you see for a nerve ending. Anybody wants to point to one, don't just go like, oh, the big one kind of matches up, and it kind of looks like it could be exactly what you say. It'll get better when some of those ear canals, like I've cleaned them out, just run them out with water, and Some of them, are just going to be, proof in and of themselves. But with the combination of everything else, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I mean, with the other endoscopes, I mean, we'll be able to get right in there and show you all along. It's hard. It's very hard. So I was good working. I was listening to First and Second Samuel, and that goes along with another one of my theories about how, a lot of you share how the Bible's misrepresented and that they weren't, living in mud huts and things like that. It was organized, and nothing could be clearer to me that that was true when you go back and you hear about when Israel got a king. So we want to be like the other nations. Well, the other nations were just getting kings, and that, was like a pretty intricate society. And we remember all the time, when you got in trouble there, if they didn't string you up, they'd get the lawyers on you and the scribes and the Pharisees. It was a very legal, contract-driven society all the way around. So going, not trying to beat around the bush with the theory, forget Dr. Fomenko and the push of Russia. There's a lot of good stuff there, and they're key in a lot of areas to what we're learning. But I don't think that it's the New Jerusalem and it's the 1,000 years or anything completely with that. And too many connections with people like the guy I caught today or last night, that is taking my stuff and especially ticked me off the stuff about, because I haven't had time to go back and go over it with the samurais and the other knights and the electric swords and the, why the armor had to be insulated with leather. That just upset me. I've been working too hard to put up with it. So we know there's no money because they just picked that up and said, well, gold and silver. It could have been beryl and topaz, or diamonds and or banana skins. Money could have been anything, but it would have had to been something plausible. The fascinations with water purity. That was one of the things they always wanted: good water, and they would mess with the people's water. The theory is that if they really, which go with me on this now, they're looking for Coachillas. They want the green and the blue fluids because they're the rarest ones, so that they can find those elements that in their world became excited when, and you've heard this before, but they don't talk about enough, blood from our Lord came onto the earth. Okay? That is a much bigger deal than they've ever let on, that I've ever had, well, I gotta think about that. How'd that never enter my mind? Well, it entered somebody's mind, and they're looking for it. And the matrix is coming out to look like something that, when you have, you really can't tell it, but this top layer here, you flake that off and everything underneath it is emerald. Yeah, and during the first judgment, if there was all this transhumanism and everything else going on that they're trying to do right now, and they were just blanket judged. There was no need to do what's going to happen to us, where we're going to be refined and dross and then purified, and we'll go back to, we will be a reflection of ourself by what's left. What is the wood, hair, stubble? And what is the gold, silver, and precious stones that will make up our quantity in heaven? Something? I remember one time I was privileged at the time to have been invited to have dinner with Dr. Rushduni, and it was one of those ones where it was just my wife and I. I don't even think our kids were old enough to go, and a couple of families, and we would each get to sit with them and ask them a question. I thought about it, and my question was, is there going to be an economy in heaven? And I don't know where that came from. And he certainly had never encountered that question before. And we thought about the question and talked about it and laughed and kind of went, well, he's like, I guess we'll see, but it's certainly not going to be with anything that we know, because I mean, everything that we would consider precious is used as a floor mat or a door or a gate. It's just beautiful everywhere. So my reason for asking him that was because, eternity is forever, and the Lord is probably not going to take an eternal Sabbath once this is over and just go like, I'm glad that's over. Not if what we know about God is true. In that this could very well be, our whole planet and everything, and our lives and our souls, and somehow, however we got involved in this, based on, when Christ was being crucified and the angels were looking down in confusion, desiring to see what's going to happen. It was that recent that, so I mean, God's still moving. He's doing things. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But it does look like that's going to be the judgment key. I mean, either you're going to be like these, and I would encourage you also, if you want to study some gemstones and other things like that, look at how many different varieties there are of the same type. And some are super, super nice and are only from certain areas and are very rare. And those are usually from the areas where the people that we insult the most with the, oh, you used to kill 500 people a day and eat their hearts, when I think I've proven and will continue to pound that all of those depictions were of how the body functions, and it didn't have anything to do with those sacrifices of real humans, and that's a very, very rare thing, until somebody proves it to me otherwise. And that because the blood of Jesus had touched the ground somewhere, and they don't know how much it is, I believe in their mind they think that is the Holy Grail. It's not the cup that caught it. It's not the sword that pierced him and touched it, or anything else. It is the blood that, like everything else in our, lack of a better word, biosphere, enclosed terrarium, right? Those elements remain with us. Now, what they do like to put out as a laughing anecdote among the elite is that, well, you do know that, on the cellular level, when the molecular resonance breaks down, and that it's very possible that there is a trace of Napoleon's urine in every glass of water we drink. I've heard that from a couple of people that thought that was very impressive. And I could just say, well, same with me, or you. But that's it. They're looking, or they may think that they have found, or that part of all of our elements contain certain traces that were only in our Lord's blood, because he was not conceived naturally, that there would be, and they know that there's something. So I don't know if they're chasing it through DNA or just slamming it together in that collider. But this theory of the Holy Grail, which I didn't start with, and it hasn't been my lifelong thing, this theory ends all that Atlantis crap. It ends all the Aryan crap. It ends all the we're going to the moon crap. And they are just about to start putting out, if there were giants on the Earth, then those really are giants on Mars. Let's go. Let's waste all our money pretending we're going to Mars. And I can only tell you that if these things were happening to you, you would handle it with your own personality, right? And if it happened to Moses, he would handle it with his personality. King David, Rahab, whoever this came to, this knowledge that it would just be one of those people that in the Bible they, would get a casual mention as, and this guy had 3 daughters and a son, and he lived a good life, and when he sinned, he confessed it to the Lord, and the Lord pleased him and blessed him in almost everything he ever did. I'd be one of those guys, and that'd be it. It wouldn't be like, no, and he was a king, or even he just got mentioned, as somebody that he was around. I was around. I've always been around the Christian movement until about 5 years ago. And that's when I realized that the Presbyterian Church in America was not going to address the issue of my wife's infidelity. And that the church policy was pretty much only to address it with the risk of excommunication if it was a man, because that was just done to a man on pretty shaky grounds, I thought, at least in terms of the chance for reconciliation. That should all come out too. And all those were exhausted. And I was pretty much, well, if there's going to be a divorce and or a separation was the only thing I would agree to. And I was going to be painted as the bad guy. No way. No, not me. I didn't do it. They did it. I worked with my friend Rick Sutton for years. His son's supposed to still have the notes. I'd like to see him. And Rick, counseled me, helped me all the way. At one time, I was going to be, a deacon at the church in Lakeview, and Rick wrote the mother of all tests to be a deacon, because to be where we were, you had to go to classes for 3 months, and I mean, you had to prove you knew the Bible. And so he wrote one that would be super hard, because I was a fundamentalist, and it would have been hard for me to be on the board for some people. And so he wanted to make sure that I proved that I knew the Bible, as they would say, inside and out. And I did, and I was very happy. I got a 94, and Reverend Sutton took off a point for misspelling prophet. That's Rick. After I realized I was a lot deeper into being gate kept all my life than I had suspected, which is the only thing that brought me here today alive in my mind. My crazy metrics free world, remember that. We continued to communicate and what I was going to do, and we had a plan involving making a movie that wasn't going to be about that, but it was going to be about a movie, and still move forward. And as one thing happened, and then another, that involved with okay, that was it. I just got, my credit rating when I moved to Colorado, which is documented, was 848. 2 points from perfect. That was my credit rating. And I was 55 years old. Yeah, and we had a house in Lake Zurich, Illinois. And we had no debt. Because I knew how to do it. I was doing it the way the Lord wanted to do it. But then, nope, I was gone. I was the bad guy because I wasn't going to let it go. It wasn't one of the things where it just couldn't be addressed anymore. I've lost my whole train of thought right now. Let me get back to it. Rick. I called Rick. I said, Rick, I just got sent something that, you know, my letters from that they were supposed to forward to. I had got an apartment in Colorado Springs, and they were supposed to forward my mail. The mail's open. It was a bill and it said due by, and the envelope that it's mailed to me in with a bunch of other mail is 2 days after. It was like, okay, now my credit's bad, and it just went downhill from there. I said, Rick, I'm going to have to just, go. I'm going to come out right now, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to, charge Larry and Reverend Chris Gerhardt with just being liars and not helping, and all of the things that Rick and I had we covered up. I mean, they were running, meetings with electing officers without enough members present. I probably am still listed as a member of that church, and I haven't been there in 5 years. But they will do whatever they want to keep the 2 elders that are in charge, and they'll bring in Rick and somebody else. Well, we were going through that, and we could only, and Rick had just semi-retired and had been ordained, and he was a part-time, became an elder. There were 3 other people that were qualified from elders that could have just stepped in, but they didn't. They knew, it would have been like, well, it's one thing to close my eyes and wink at what's going on here, but it's another thing to be a part of it. So nobody did it. And I told Rick, I'm going forward, and I'm going to tell him. I said, this is what it is. And he said, well, all I can do is just, go. And he was going to tell the truth. He's going to go with dates and times, and this is what was said, because there were times when I, went to them. I said, Rick, Larry, Chris was supposed to meet with me to talk about why he's blaming me because he didn't get his doctorate. And things like that, and he still hasn't met with me. It's been 2 years. I want to know what's going on, because I went through every step of the process. I never said, okay, quit, frustrated, I'm leaving this church. I want to know why. I'm going through every step of the process. And it was like, oh my goodness, you know what? That kind of just slipped my mind with everything that's going on, because things were going well and stuff. But yeah, we'll get back together. And it didn't happen again. And I said, you were there, Rick. Let's escalate it. Rick died that night. Rick died that night. He had an unexpected heart attack. And as a man who seemed to be fairly healthy, just gone. I think the Lord blessed him and took him home, because he was going to do the right thing. Because what I'm doing wasn't finished yet. A little while later, I couldn't get to the funeral. I called the pastor that was there, because we were going to Lakeview Presbyterian after I left Christian Liberty and the Homeschool Movement, because it was PCA Calvinist Christian. And Reverend Kent Hinkston was the pastor there, and it was a growing, thriving church, and a lot of very smart people from Trinity Evangelical Deerfield. PhDs taught there, Dr. Yarbrough, and others. It was a good church, and we left and went to help church plant. And the minister that we went with, he really, the PCA might have made a bad decision by overpaying new ministers. I mean, back in the, they were paying like 60,000 20 years ago. And he mailed it in and then went to Evangelical Presbyterian Church. So we went back to Lakeview, and we had tried that for 2 years, and Reverend Gerhardt was there. And I never really did get a good answer about, well, what happened? What happened? Why did he leave? And it was just one of those things where the only story is, and you can check it, is that, well, Kent just said, I think I'm going to move to Florida, and I think Reverend Gerhardt should take over and be the pastor here, and I'm moving in 2 weeks. And it was kind of like, what? Okay. And then that just stayed on, and it's been years now, 20 years. The church hasn't grown. There hasn't been any growth at all. When I was there, remember, for 13 years, they never once came to visit on a regular elder minister thing. The one time that they did visit was to tell us that the church had made a decision that tithing wasn't enough on your net. You have to tithe on your gross, or vice versa. But whatever you cleared, that's what you tithed on, not what the government took. That was their cart, because they were running out of money. But somehow they always made it. And what was going on, so I did a Facebook. I was still doing Facebook, where I would do that like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I still touch it every now and then to post a video on there. And I communicated with him, and I don't know if we talked or not, but we exchanged some letters, and he was going to get back, and when we had time to talk, and lay it out for me what really happened. I didn't hear from him for a week. I called back, and he was dead. He was dead too. Reverend Kent Hinkson. Maybe you live in a world where we can win the Civil War because somebody got lucky and found 3 cigars, and oh wow, they just happened to be wrapped in the enemy's plan of attack. Or we can win World War II by, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're losing. We better throw this body out of a plane and hope that the Nazis find it and think it's a secret, and they buy that secret, and then when we attack somewhere else, they would have been fooled, and that worked too. If you want to live your life with a bunch of coincidences, you can. In my world, that's a lot. And those are 2 names that I've just given you. That, go ahead, researchers. This is a better theory on the Holy Grail for Christians than any of that other nonsense floating around there. Now, we have people going crazy, doing things, going out of their way to hurt people. All the signs lead that this is still a war between Protestants and Catholics. Whether half the Catholics know it or not, and whether 80% of the Protestants would ever admit that or not. The Bible is being changed in our lifetime. Programs were changed. We believe different things, different levels. My original thinking was Satan is loosed. It has to be that we're in some sort of a judgment. If somebody can convince me that we're just entering into an age of Philadelphia, and it's only the year 773 instead of like what another guy I respect, he thinks it's the year 1773. But I would like to ask him, where'd you get that other 1,000 years? If we could take off that 1,000 years, it would all fit. It would all fit. And that 1,000 years that Rome insists that were the Dark Ages, where there were no advancements in mankind. No inventions. We went from, from the hoe and the rake for 1,000 years, and the only thing you could afford a little bit of steel for those knights to joust, and it was the Dark Ages. And no, it wasn't. Up until recently, I don't know when the Bible was written, and neither do you. We don't know if they were fighting about it, still writing it at Chalcedon, because it was happening. You cannot prove to me when these buildings around us, the megalithic ones, were built. You can't tell me when the Great Wall of China was built. You can't tell me radiocarbon dating works. You can't give me a date. All I can do is show you the same things that other people have been researching, finding, is that something happened around World War I. And we aren't getting any real news since World War II. And we're being fed a diet that would encourage us to die, and that if we panic, to die expressing not good green stuff, but other chemicals that they need. And you get more from a unhealthy heart, than you do a healthy heart of the bad things they need. I'd love to hear more about the historicist view, but I still am troubled by how is Satan, where is all this demonic activity coming from? Because Satan is supposed to be bound. So I've got questions. I'm out of the matrix. I'm seeing things that I can't deny, and I don't think you should either. You can help me tweak it, because like you just can't throw it all out. I'm going to clean off this, autopsy part of a thing today. I'm going to clean off that other piece that I'm pretty sure is going to turn out like the bull, except even more complicated, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to incorporate, or the Lord will incorporate some beryl, some emeralds in there, maybe it'll be aquamarine if it's light blue. But that's what I've been gifted with right now, and it's not a gift I've been asked, I was asking for. And if anybody ever says, what have I got to do it, I'm going to say, well, you got to be like Paul, just go about your business and you can get knocked over the head. That's how you plan for it. If anybody's going to tell you, you got to walk the aisle, go to these classes, do this class, and say hoobda 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 over and over again, that's not how it worked for me. I was going about my business in the 4th decade of loving and serving the Lord and believing the Bible and thinking, I don't care what they tell me. They are so full of it, They're just baloney. There is no God. Come on, what are you thinking, I never got tired of that, because it never got untrue. So yeah, I saw it. Is it not true because of me? Or is there a chance that all of those other far-fetched, Holy Grail, King Arthur things are ridiculous? Or would it be more plausible to put the King Arthur thing into perspective and start saying, that makes more sense with what they're describing in Samuel, that all of a sudden they're getting kings. Who's going to be the king? These 3 guys came from over here. They got a bunch of silver. They had to go fight a dragon. This person got leprosy. They called on the sorcerer. He wasn't, in those days they called them seers. We call them prophets now. Let's start finding out a name. It was Samuel I don't know, Knox or one of those guys, or one of the early leaders that was appointing kings and stuff. I mean, I don't want to go down the. I mean, I am not going down a tribe where England is the Holy Land either. No way. It's Africa. I'm pretty sure on that. My Lord is, I think, was a black man from Africa, from Ethiopia, and I think that's why, you know, the people were jealous of black people, man. And it's, you know, in whatever age we're in now, or if it was the golden age past, is that, you know, jealousy is bad, and jealousy among themselves is bad. It does look like they're right, that there was a, you know, a group of their own that, you know, the black people might, you know, probably were the original tribes of Israel. And when they split, it looks like, man, they split. They fought right to the end, man. Black on black. And we were just left going, and we were, you know, like, wow, what the hell is going on? And, you know, I don't have it all figured out, but I ain't going down the England is the Holy Land road and white people are really the called of God. That's not happening. That's not true. So there you go. There's your Holy Grail story. There's my story. There's part of it. All that stuff they're calling railroad slag is just, hey, let's get rid of the bones. They left the gemstones in them. If you want to go get them, they're not really worth money because I think you're only going to get the big money for the big gemstones is if you're connected. That's probably, you know, hence the phrase, what conundrum we're in here, poor farmer Billy, that, you know, you do have a nice shiny stone there, but it's not a sapphire. We've been getting it. We've been getting it. So we got to find out what year it is, man. But I know it is in 2017. Get out of here. It's a flat earth nation. 2 Samuel. And that goes along with another one of my theories about how, you know, a lot of you share how the Bible's misrepresented and that they weren't, you know, living in mud huts and things like that. It was organized. And nothing could be clearer to me that that was true when you go back and you hear about when Israel got a king. You know, so we want to be like the other nations. Well, the other nations were just getting kings. And that, you know, was like a pretty intricate society. And we remember all the time, you know, when you got in trouble there, if they didn't string you up, they'd get the lawyers on you and the scribes and the Pharisees. It was a very legal, contract-driven society all the way around. So going, you know, not trying to beat around the bush with the theory, forget Dr. Fomenko and the push of Russia. There's a lot of good stuff there, and they're key in a lot of areas to what we're learning. But I don't think that it's the New Jerusalem and it's the 1,000 years or anything completely with that, and too many connections with people like the guy I caught today. When I get to that point in my forensicing the fossil skulls, we'll find that, and I will account for every little hole that you see for a nerve ending. Anybody wants to point to one, don't just go like, oh, the big one kind of matches up, you know, and it kind of looks like it could be exactly what you say, you know. It'll get better when some of those ear canals, like I've cleaned them out, you know, just run them out with water, and some of them, you know, are just going to be, you know, proof in and of themselves. But with the combination of everything else, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I mean, with the other endoscopes, I mean, we'll be able to get right in there. And show you all along. It's hard. It's very hard. So I was good working. I was listening to first the Woodland Owl token that probably is 10 times better than the one in the Smithsonian. Google it if you want to. So I've got all that going. I can prove it that way. I can, I can go back and show you my art and tell you that you see the bull because God put it there. That's why. Not because I know how to carve obsidian. That's ridiculous. So we got that. We got what I call skulls with, with holes that we're going to be examining. I've got 4 or 5 specimens like this that will have the ear holes. I'll be able to get down to smaller ones. I have bought 2 endoscopes so that the bigger ones will just go right in them. And I'll be able to point out what I see on the inside, and I'll say, oh, well, hello everybody, welcome. It is a Flat Earth Nation, and don't ever let them tell you anything else. And I am super excited right now because I can finally verbalize a complete theory instead of a theory on a topic or a subject. And it just came into place while I was working today. I was working on a sermon and a presentation for tonight, and walking my dog, I had saw some rocks that looked interesting to me, and I wanted to go back and check it out. In the back of my mind was going like, you're just going back there to check them out because they're green. And I saw some flashes of green when I picked up that stone the other night that I said I was going to turn into art tonight. But I might skip that. It might be easy, but this is more important, a formulation of a complete theory. And how rare is it to find green, the rarest of colors in stone? And it was exciting for me because it just kept coming. And some of the pieces are big enough that still are, I'll be able to prove that they were grown on this matrix, and that what they are calling a rock, or what they'll probably try to pass off as petrified wood, no way. Breakpoints. I got them there. I got them. I know this part too, and it's got green, it's got matrix. So even if they don't buy it, I've got emerald or beryl, as we'll go into later lessons. And that on the gemstones, the diamonds and beryls, and what a conundrum. You ever hear that one? Well, what is a conundrum? It's a gemstone that could be a sapphire, but if it's not the right color, depending on who you buy it from, could be red, could be green. It's a conundrum. It's white. It depends on who's selling it to you. So I've got that going. We've got priceless art that I'm finding, that they call modern stonework, which this piece is an example of.